Yeah, so this is an analysis of the 1679 max numbers of k-sum pairs problem. And so this problem is part of the January LeetCode challenge. It is week 3 and January 18th. So you're given an integer array nums and an integer k. In one operation, you can pick two numbers from the array whose sum equals k, and then remove them from the array, and then return the maximum number of operations you can perform on the array. So if the array was 1, 2, 3, 4, and k was 5, then your output would be 2, because since k was 5, you start with 1, and then 1 plus 4 would equal 5, so you could remove those two from the array. Moving on, 2 plus 3 is also equal to 5, so you could remove those two. And finally, since nums would be an empty array, you would just return however many operations you just did, which in this case it's 2. And so in the next example, nums is 3, 1, 3, 4, 3, and k is 6. You see, so the output in this scenario would be 1. So if you start with 3, you can see 3 plus 3 would equal 6, so you remove those two from the array. Once after that, you'll be left with 1, 4, and 3. So with these numbers, there's no possible combination that would achieve a sum which equals 6, so you just end that position, meaning that there will be only one possible operation in this case, and then the output would just be 1. So how do you do this? So one way of doing this is to build it from the ground up. And so here's an example. So let's go with the second test case, which the input would just be 3, 1, 3, 4, 3, and you know k is equal to 6. So instead of just building or starting with this whole array and working your way down, you could start from an empty array or empty map and build your way up. So let's try the second approach. You start with an empty map, and then first you iterate through this entire array. And so first thing to do in a situation like this is, given a certain number, what's the opposite number? So if you had a 3, what number would you need to add to 3 such that you would get k? And so in this scenario, 6 minus 3, 6 being k, 6 minus 3 is equal to 3. So you can see the opposite for 3, in this case, would be 3. Opposite of 1 would be 5, opposite of 4 would be 2. So first you would find this opposite value. And so since you have an empty map here, you could find when so for each opposite value, so I'll just write them below. 3, 5, 3, 2, 3. You would go through the map, and if the map contains this opposite value, then you check two conditions. First, if the map value of the opposite is not equal to 1, so not equal to 1, then you would enter into the map the opposite value and the current value at that position minus 1. So in Java it would be mapped up with this value, comma, original int, which is the original value for the map, minus 1. And so that's what you do if it does not contain 1. But if it does contain 1, then you just remove from the map. So map dot remove. Map dot remove and that value. And so, and then one last thing, you would need a counter. So I'll just call it int temp. And so every time you find that the opposite is within the map, then you just increase the value of temp by 1. Temp plus. And then, so yeah, you just increase the value of temp by 1 every time, and then just return temp. Return temp at the very end. And so, what happens if map does not contain the key? So at the very start you have an empty map, and the first opposite is 3. So what you would do is just put in the original value at the default position. So essentially just the very start of the map. You just put in the default value. And so essentially, yeah, that's about it. And here is code, code in Java for this question. And so yeah, here is a Java solution for this problem. You have the original hash map, or the original map, and then the counter temp. And then going through each value in the array, you first calculate the opposite and check if the map contains the opposite. And then you have these two conditions as I highlighted earlier. And then if the map does contain the opposite, you just increase the value of the counter. And if the map does not contain the opposite, then you just put the value of the opposite, or sorry, put the value of the actual value into the map, like this. And so essentially, yeah, that's about it for this problem.